stream of consciousness.
It's the golden hour and birds are singing. I can hear a skateboarder outside. I really do not like skateboarders, but aside from that, it looks like it might be perfect out there. I'm inside. I'm really lucky. I have a deck. It's incredible. I can see the sky. But it's a little cold because there's a polar vortex coming. It's May 4th. And it's going to go down to 0. I don't mind too much. Yeah, I think I'll be okay. I hope you'll be okay too. If you're somewhere where there is no polar vortex, I think that's great. I'm pretty sure the entire northern hemisphere, though, is colder than usual right now, which doesn't mean that the planet isn't warming. It just means that it's cold now. It's extreme. It's really extreme. That's fine as long as we don't lose all of our fruit crops for the year. But I learned today that airline travel is going to be really expensive for the next 3 to 5 years, and maybe that's not the worst thing in the world. I'm not the only person who kind of debates with themselves, is it really worth flying to do this thing I want to do? And I think sometimes it is. Sometimes you actually absolutely have to be on site, but as we all know, you can just use a video phone and a chat feature and some screen sharing and maybe some email too. And when it comes to, what's that called? Being productive, it's just as well. But it's, I guess it's harder when you want to see people you love. You want to, I don't know, smell them, hug them, eat food with them, like share the same food, not sit in front of a screen eating even the same thing. I mean, you could try that. You could try that. My best friend is not Jewish, but she wanted to have a Passover Seder with me, and we did it. She asked me, "What's the menu?" And I kind of I pulled some stuff out of the air that I would want to eat, and she cooked it all. Like I didn't even cook all of that, but she cooked it all because she's amazing, and she's sitting in New York, and I'm sitting in Toronto, and we're just doing. We did the whole thing. We did the full on Passover Seder, and like we're supposed to, we finished before midnight and then chit-chatted a little longer. And I don't really drink. I used to drink a lot, and I don't really drink anymore, but I definitely had about 2/3 of a bottle of wine. And the thing I was most shocked about was that it didn't hit me. And I'm a person who, I had like maybe a half ounce of sake, which, like, in case you didn't know, it's basically wine. It's not like whiskey, it's like wine. And somebody had given me a really beautiful like little 1 cup, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's 1 cup. It's usually glass, comes with a pull tab, so it's like a cute little glass full of sake. And I had like half an ounce a little while ago to celebrate finishing something. I forget what now. And like right away I felt tipsy, but for some reason this 2/3 of a bottle of wine did not fuck me up. I don't know what that's about. Maybe it was God, which is a shame because it's supposed to fuck me up a little. I didn't get fucked up until like one of the few occasions of the year where I like to get fucked up a little. Not slurring my speech or anything like that. I want to, remember what happened. But that was actually a really nice event. And then another very good friend of mine did a little pop in for a bit, and we talked to her, and it was nice to catch up with everybody. And it felt pretty special. My mom declined to join the virtual Seder. Very traditional. I think the idea for her of like sitting at a table with her like phone propped up against like a glass or something was really sad for her, and I understand that too. And hopefully this won't go on much longer like this. Ideally, this time next year, we can go sit with at least one other relative. um, but yeah, it's May. There's blossoms on the trees. The tree outside my window is called a honey locust, and it's a very late blooming tree up here. I think this is the northern part of its range. But when it does bloom, which is usually late May, early June, I mean, there's not even buds on it right now. It looks fully dead. But when it does eventually bloom, it has all its leaves and these white bunches of flowers that smell like jasmine. Um, and it's wonderful. It's such a beautiful thing. I can't believe how lucky I am. You have no idea. I'm not going to humble brag. I'm just going to brag and let you know that things here are not bad. I do not work in a meat processing plant where I'm being forced to expose myself to a fucked up pandemic every day. If you don't live in Canada, or if you do live in Canada and you didn't know, there's the biggest outbreak in the country is occurring at a meat packing plant in Alberta. And Alberta is kind of the Texas of Canada. And everyone who works at this plant is an immigrant or a refugee or a migrant. As you would imagine, working at a slaughterhouse is a job that if you don't have to take it, you don't take it. And it's a very nice community of people who work there, and there's like 900 of them have COVID, and there's not there's not that many people working there, and they're all being forced back to work. The union's been trying really hard to stop that, and even though things in Canada are awesome compared to pretty much everywhere else in the world, there's this like ugly stain. I don't need a steak that badly. I'm sure you don't either. Don't really need a hamburger that badly. I'm pretty sure you don't either. I don't even need like little pieces of beef inside something to make me feel like at least I'm getting a little bit of meat. I like meat a lot, but yeah, there we have it. Some things just don't work out. And apparently one of the reasons for this is like the cattle ranchers, there's sort of like a limit on how old the cattle can get before they're pretty much like too old for market. I think it's 2 years for a steer. Don't 100% quote me on that, but it's a limit like that. Like 1 or 2 years is 1 to 2 years is like the ideal time unless it's veal. And so they urgently want to get their cattle slaughtered. I wonder who has more clout, landowning ranchers or recent immigrants and refugees. Maybe we can we could get somebody to figure that one out for their PhD thesis. It's a question of our time, who has more political influence. I shouldn't laugh. It's a fucking tragedy. And we're all complicit. I don't know. I've got a face massager in my house, and it's great. And I highly recommend it. In addition to supposedly making me young again, it's also wonderful for jaw pain. My jaw was actually falling out of its socket for a while in late 2019. And I saw my First, I saw my dentist, and she was extremely concerned, and she was like, "You need to deal with this immediately. Like, you need to go talk to what did she say? Anyway, whatever she said, it was like if you don't get this resolved, like ultimately it's going to result in surgery." And I'm like, oh God, because in Canada, dentistry is not considered medicine. So if your arm falls out of its socket, you can get that taken care of for free. But if your jaw falls out of its socket, you have to pay thousands of dollars to get that fixed. Oh yeah, she recommended massage therapy. That's what it was. And I didn't want to pay. Well, I called her massage therapist she recommended, and it like the woman didn't really answer, but I also knew it would be expensive. So I went to one of the Chinatown massage therapy places that I really like. These guys are awesome. They do Tuina massage. I mangled the pronunciation. And they're awesome because they're the kind of place like, okay, you can get like acupuncture and Tuina massage and like cupping and whatever. But I once went in, I had all these like lumps in my neck going right down into my collarbone. And I didn't know what to do about it, and I went to the pharmacy, and I asked the pharmacist, and she was like, no, it's not a big deal, like, just go get a massage. And she's, like the 23-year-old pharmacist had this advice. So I went to the massage place, and I was like, hey, I've got these lumps in my neck. Can I get a massage? And they were like, no. Under no circumstances are we giving you a massage. You need to go to the doctor immediately. And I was like, but it's 9:00 at night and the doctor's closed. They were like, if you wait a half hour, you can get some acupuncture. Nobody is going to give you a massage. So I said, okay. And they hooked me up with the 73-year-old master acupuncturist. And the first thing he says to me is like, I'm not touching your neck. Don't let anybody touch your neck. I'm like, okay. And then he like does this thing. And when he's done, he's like, yeah, you need to see a doctor as soon as possible, like first thing in the morning. But if you want to know what this is from like a TCM perspective, like a traditional Chinese medicine perspective, it's like your kidneys and stress, and like he's kind of like discussing blah 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 meridians and stuff, but ultimately is like related to kidneys and stress. And he's like, normally this shows up in people's hands, but for whatever reason you have it like in your neck and collarbone. You still need to see a doctor immediately. I was like, okay, yes. So the next day I go to the doctor, and she's like everybody else deeply concerned. And she's like asking detailed questions, and she's like lightly touching it. And she's like, okay, probably not cancer. Don't touch it. If it gets bigger in the next 2 or 3 days, go to the hospital immediately. But if it just stays the same or goes away, like, that's great. Don't touch it. And it went away. And that's not the first time I've had something that I thought was a really fucked up chronic condition emerging. And it just turned out to be related to my emotional state. So that's real. Those things are real, and I have no shame about it. And I don't think people should be ashamed. And maybe, Western medicine is amazing, and like, man, if you need surgery, get the surgery. But also like our emotional state is a big part of that. And that's why during COVID, you should probably hug people in crisis, or just let the family go see their nonverbal autistic child in group home care. Like, let them just visit. You can make an arrangement of some kind. Like, the kid will die if they don't see their parents. That's just what's gonna, anyway, whatever. I don't need to rant about that. I don't know. Oh yeah. So I go to this Trina place with my jaw falling out of its socket. And they're like, we're not going to touch your jaw. Don't let anyone touch your jaw until you've seen a doctor. I was like, great, I will go see a doctor. And I made a doctor appointment. I love those tweener people because they will definitely take care of you, but they're not taking any chances. And I think that's so awesome. So I go to my doctor, and she looks at me and she touches my head, and it's crazy because she touches in these ways where like my entire head is cracking. And she's like, yeah, this is totally messed up. Like, my dentist has done the same thing. Both of them are like, this is totally messed up. You're totally messed up. And she's like, the first thing you have to do is throw away your mouth. Not throw. She says throw away your mouth guard. I didn't throw it away, but she goes, you need to get rid of your mouth guard and like just chant this mantra to yourself at night. Lips together, teeth apart. Lips together, teeth apart. Lips together, teeth apart. And I'm like, and she's like, yeah. She's like, just don't, your jaw, if your teeth are touching, you're clenching your jaw. And I think that it was like, that was a huge revelation to me. I think that's one of the biggest revelations I've had in years. I had no idea that if your teeth are touching, you're clenching your jaw, but it's true. So I was like, huh. She's like, all right, come back in 4 to 6 weeks and we'll see where to go from there. And I was like, that's perfect because I'm going to Japan. And I forgot to take my mouth guard with me. So it was the perfect experiment. What do you know? The first week was really hard. I'm like, it just feels weird. And then I realized that like my tongue kind of like suctions itself to the top of my mouth. And I looked at pictures of animals and like, you know, the diagrams you can see into the side of their head. And like, I'm like, oh yeah, none of their teeth are touching. And their tongue is kind of sticking to the roof of their mouth. And then, yeah, you know, like you massage your face, that helps. And my jaw doesn't fall out of my head anymore, and it only took 6 weeks. That's it. That's all. I don't know, the human body's amazing. That's also like a emotional issue emerging in my body. But that shit happens sometimes. I mean, like, also some of it was like a traumatic dental surgery. When I was 17, I had my wisdom teeth extracted. And when I woke up from the sedation, I was screaming. My mouth was full of blood, and I was screaming. And I was screaming for my friend, and I don't know, like to this day, I don't really know why it was her in particular I was screaming for. But like, it was terror. It was absolute horror. My mouth is full of blood and gauze, and I'm screaming, and I can't really move my body. Just sort of like drag it off this, I don't know what the fuck it was. Not a couch, but you know those things, like the nurse's room couch in school, except it was a dental surgeon. Just fucking terrifying. To this day, I wonder if I was like sexually assaulted, but I think that's not, I'm not gonna like believe in that. I'm going to just believe I had a traumatic dental surgery that happened to leave my left thigh kind of numb to this day. I don't know if you knew this could happen, but there's like a nerve in your jaw, and if you damage it, it can sometimes completely get rid of all the feeling in your thigh, of all places. That's real. I'm not lying about that. I'm not the only person, but you actually have to sign the waiver saying that you know that. Although, like, what waiver was I signing at the age of 17? I think there might have been something else in the future that it also had to do with the jaw that I signed off on that. I don't know. Medicine is so strange. This doctor I have who like is very like non-interventionist. She's like, chant a mantra to yourself. She also happens to be like a big vaccine advocate and runs a lot of clinical trials. And for many years, I was very like skeptical about it. She also is like very, very aggressive about wanting me to go on birth control. And my pediatrician who died on the job, like that woman died at her desk, basically. Not actually, but like she was one of those people. She's like 90 and still working. She had been very like strongly against birth control. She was like, no, once you're on birth control, you're not going to use condoms. That's even worse. But then my doctor was strongly pro birth control. And I don't know, like I had been on birth control when I was in, I guess, my later years of high school. And it really fucked me up. Like the absolute worst experience was my last semester. We used to have a grade 13, and I had one semester to go. It was at the first semester, and I just had to finish that, and I was done. I was like, my hoodie would swallow me. Like my hoodie was actually swallowing me. Or like I wrote a test, and tests do not stress me out. I'm not a I'm not a person who like in high school worried about tests. Um, and I was writing a test and there were like ants crawling up my arm and I was not high. I was not the kid who did acid and went to class. Like, but that was the moment when I was like, I think I need to stop taking this shit. But anyway, she's like, she's very like pro medication, like pro vaccine. And she like runs, and like I said, she runs a lot of clinical trials out of her practice, but at the same time she's really like non-interventionist when it comes to a lot of kind of like devices or surgeries, which is kind of like a weird contrast, but it's interesting to think that like it is kind of true, like the way we hold our body is directly related to our mood, and our mood is something we can't, it's not like you can control it, especially if you're dealing with a lot of trauma, but you can pay attention to your body. I can't meditate. I'm not one of those meditation people. It fucks me up, probably worse than the birth control did. But I do think that paying attention to your body is a really good way to kind of like fix problems that aren't at the stage that needs like a hardcore Western medicine intervention. Like, where are your feet on the ground? How are you holding your shoulders? How are you breathing? Like, are you clenching your jaw? I got really into kiteboarding a couple of years ago, and I was not doing very well. And then I just decided, I was like, okay, kiteboarding's so expensive, and like there's two things I need to do if I'm gonna get more out of my time learning, and that is swim, like get better at swimming so that I don't die if I get like trapped out in the middle of a body of water and the kite is far away. And core strength, and that's really important. And so I got really into Pilates, which I hadn't liked when I tried it the first time many, many years ago, but I liked a lot more when I had a more chill teacher. And one thing that's really good about that kind of stuff, I don't know if it's just like I'm in the mental space for it or if it's the nature of the regime, but it's a lot about like these kind of micro positions in your body, like how are you holding your body and like how is your breath, but not just in this like way of like breathe in, breathe out, but like where is the breath going in your body, and like ways to like not force the breath, but actually like actively controlling it as opposed to just like letting it go is this relaxed thing. But also just other things like, oh yeah, like if I like move my hip a little, it's actually lined up, and that makes a big difference. But nothing's perfect. Nobody's perfect. I don't know. That's just I'm really on this kick of like gently paying attention to what my body's doing when I'm extremely stressed out. And then figuring that out kind of helps a little. I still haven't figured out how to deal with the like wrenching gut pain. I know that is stress related. And it's like the most directly stress related, like the stomach and emotions and the brain. But it's so, it feels much harder to control because like your jaw is muscles that you control and you can just move it around and control that. But your gut, it's a lot harder to control like what your gut is doing. I don't mean your abs or your core. I mean your gut. And there it is. It's just like it's so needy and explosive. I like not diarrhea, although for sure diarrhea, depending on what your emotional connection to your gut is. But like temper tantrumy. The gut has temper tantrums. I don't know. Those body things. I was never a jock. But it's interesting. The body's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. You guys ever get into craniosacral therapy? Because that stuff's awesome. Yeah. The sky is now turning, it's kind of like beautiful pink before it becomes lavender. Yesterday it was lavender. It was really something else. It was spectacular. Um, but it's windy. The polar vortex is coming. Tonight I'll read a book I was very excited to get, and that book is called Beverly, and it's by Nick Jonas, so I didn't pronounce his name right, and it was recommended to a very good friend of mine who lives in Japan, and she is my fixer, and she has just really amazing taste in movies and graphic novels, and she recommended it, and his other work, Sabrina, is also really beautiful and incredible, and he does like early 20th century alienation so well. I wonder what he'll make of all this that's happening right now. I'm sure it's going to be a masterwork. Anyhow, it's not that I've gotten to the end of my rope here. It's just that I don't want to start repeating myself and or get myself into trouble. So maybe I'll just stop. Take care of yourself, everyone. Stream of consciousness.